2020 has been eventful to say the least. We've had a Bitcoin halving, a wild alt season fueled by DeFi, and really what I believe was stimulus finding its way into price-reactive assets like the altcoin market. However, now that we find ourselves at the end of October 2020, the altcoin market has by all means slowed down to a crawl. And while new projects are still clocking some pretty impressive gains, the projects that we know and love, the fundamentally strong assets that have potential to truly disrupt the next generation of technologies, well, those have not been performing so well. So today we're going to be going over when I believe Bitcoin will hit new all-time highs and when I believe the altcoin market will truly wake up from its slumber. Today's video is all about understanding when the next exciting wave will come to cryptocurrencies and how I'm preparing for it. So if you guys are excited for this one, go ahead and smash that like button. And remember, each and every comment is entered to win your very own Ledger Nano S. With that said, let's dive in. Despite the incredible recent bullishness, which had Bitcoin close its most bullish weekly candle since the beginning of 2018, when the market was almost at all-time highs as far as cryptocurrency market caps, well, despite all that, we've seen a bit of malaise start to impact the Bitcoin market. Now, expert traders like my buddy Eric Crown at Crown's Crypto Cave had predicted this short-term pullback while we find new ground and potentially try even higher. However, more importantly is a question of when the altcoin markets will come back to life once again, and if they will, as many people during the altcoin downturn of September and October have more or less turned their back on these alternative crypto assets. The reality is that I believe that we have a significant uptrend coming in the next year, just like we did on the previous bull run, and I believe this has a lot to do with the upcoming stimulus deal. For the better part of the last 3 months, it seemed as though we were inching closer and closer to a stimulus deal. But now it seems, given how close this monumental and historic election is, that we will not be seeing any kind of meaningful policy moves from our congressional leaders before that election. With that in mind, there is a high likelihood that we end up not seeing any meaningful policy implemented until well after the new year, when the new Congress and the new president, if there is a new president, is inaugurated. Translation, I'm not expecting anything big in the form of new stimulus hitting the market between now and really Q1 of 2021. Regardless of the outcome of the election, there will be most likely some shuffling of the deck, whether that means the House, the Senate, or the White House itself. What we know for sure is that the American people are deeply hurting, and that it is politically popular on both sides to find some kind of stimulus deal, and it seems as though the numbers are hovering around the $2 trillion mark. Well, that would mean that we would have a whole lot of new, freshly printed US dollars flooding the economy, and in my opinion, they'd be finding a home in the types of assets that treated them so well during 2020, and those are tech stocks and altcoins in particular. And if history is any guide as to how this will play out, let's just look at the last time that Bitcoin approached and broke through its all-time high. I think it's critical if you want to understand the interplay between Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoins, and pretty much anything that you might be holding bags of. Well, yep, this one's for you. If we look back at Bitcoin's history throughout 2016, 2017, now Bitcoin in 2016 finally overcame its prior high of about $1,100, and that happened for the first time right here, with $1,130 being clocked at the beginning of January 2017. Now, it got rejected sharply off this immediately, and then it worked its way right back up, kind of like we're seeing with the 12K level right now, and eventually broke through it more decisively at the end of February. That's sort of middle-late Q1 2017, and I'm expecting some similar trajectories to be happening in middle-late Q1 2021. We also see shortly after Bitcoin's run that Ethereum picked up and to the right shortly thereafter, and middle-end of February, we see Ethereum moving from about $10, $11 where it had been sitting for months to the $100 level by the time May had commenced. Really, by the time you're in March, it's already done a 4x plus. And so Ethereum really wasted no time after Bitcoin took off to start gaining market cap. But what about older altcoins that had just been sitting there and hadn't really been performing? Mind you, Ripple, XRP, had been on the market since early 2013. That's right, Ripple dates back to August 2013, I guess mid 2013. And it had this little early run back in early 2013, or late 2013 rather, where it made it up to about 5 cents. And then it crashed down and pretty much bled out for years and years. There was a little mini alt season in 2014, and then it bled out again. Nothing satisfied or came close to these all-time highs of 5 cents, and Ripple's pretty much been hanging out here at about half a penny ever since its long fall from its all-time high of 5 cents. But by the time we make it midway through the 2017 cycle, we see altcoins really starting to move. Now, if we look at this first big push from XRP, which is one of the oldest and most sort of sought after altcoins on the market, dating back to before this cycle, we see that the end of May, beginning of April was when these altcoins really started taking off to newer and higher highs. And what we see is at the end of March, we see a little slump in Bitcoin, but then it starts really building steam throughout April into May. And Bitcoin is bulling as well as the alts. So while I do believe that there's some logic to the fact that Bitcoin temporarily drains alts, I see a lot of historical correlations showing that as Bitcoin starts to build more and more liquidity, especially as it enters price discovery mode where it's creating newer and higher highs, well, that's a time where altcoins get showered with much more liquidity and underlying asset value, especially for those things that were traded against BTC, as many altcoins have been throughout their history. I keep seeing memes like this about how altcoins are drowning, 2017 coins are just under the sea, and people are just playing happily with their Bitcoin. You know, this makes for a good meme, but does it really tell the full story? Now, of course, I'm not saying that all altcoins, you will just be able to throw a dart and make money. I don't believe in that. I do believe, however, that the really fundamentally strong altcoins with strong teams, narratives, technology, and use case, those will have the chance to wake up and do some insane gains once Bitcoin truly enters price discovery territory, which, if history is a guide, which will happen in the first quarter of the year following the halving. Now, this happens to line up really well with my political analysis as well, which of course shows that before this November election, I don't think we're going to be getting a stimulus deal. However, shortly thereafter, I would see it as politically suicidal on both sides if there wasn't some kind of effort to alleviate the pain and suffering happening within the American people. More importantly, the underlying foundations and narratives around Bitcoin have never been stronger. In fact, we see a Russian gold mining firm just discovered 40 million troy ounces of gold, which means, of course, that gold is even less scarce than we thought it was yesterday. We also have the news that someone just sent $1 billion in Bitcoin for just $3 in fees. $3 to send $1 billion. Now, that might not mean a lot to you if you haven't transferred large sums of money through the traditional financial system, but ask anyone who's of some sort of wealth what it takes to move that kind of money. And I'll tell you this much, banks don't like to let you transfer that much very easily, and the fees are ridiculous. So seeing these kinds of transfers are absolutely stunning, and again shows you that it would be madness if this kind of open financial system does not catch on. It's absolutely mind-boggling that you can do this much volume in transactions this fast, this cheap. Even though Bitcoin has its problems, this is an amazing headline. But more importantly, we see Alibaba's founder, Jack Ma, who runs one of the biggest companies and most influential companies in the world, often referred to as China's Amazon. Jack Ma essentially blasted global regulation and said that digital currency should be creating value during his speech yesterday. Now, notoriously, Jack Ma has not been a supporter of Bitcoin. He has been a supporter of blockchain. However, the biggest thing here is he said digital currency could create value and we should think about how to establish a new financial system through digital currency. However, as you can see with this interaction between Vitalik and CZ, Vitalik essentially uses the Chinese word here and says, does he mean cryptocurrency or a much watered down forms of centralized digital currency though? And this is of course because the translation from the Chinese word that Jack Ma used isn't clear. And CZ says the literal translation of the word he used is digital currency. However, in Chinese culture, the meaning is up for interpretation. That's pretty much as far as he can push it without getting into serious trouble for such a speech. He did push a lot of buttons though, respect. And everybody knows that speaking out against essentially the government or imposing your will on what you think currency should be, which is a very sensitive topic in China, sensitive everywhere, but especially in China, essentially is a good path to having the government come and seize everything and put you in jail, pretty much. And so CZ saying, hey, look, respect the guy for even saying this. Jack Ma is one of the tech business elites that everybody looks at kind of like almost an extension of the government. And so him saying anything that could be considered a rebuke against the government government is definitely something that could put him in hot water. At any rate, this is an incredible step forward from Jack Ma, who has been historically a crypto skeptic, on the heels of MicroStrategy, Square, Stone Ridge, and now what is a wave of institutions adopting Bitcoin as a reserve asset. Seeing positive speeches about digital currency from people like Jack Ma is just adding fuel to that fire. So looking at historical precedent that will make newer and higher highs here at the end potentially of February, at potentially the end of February in 2021, like we did in 2017, that would line up well with the stimulus prediction that I have, that we will get some kind of government stimulus, debasing the dollar and essentially inflating the value of things like Bitcoin. We are also getting the institutional adoption wave, now potentially including the likes of Jack Ma. We've seen that Ethereum tends to react and grow in tandem with Bitcoin, and we even see that altcoins, which had been slugging along, not doing much for literally years at a time, like XRP had, are potentially able to do absolute monstrous gains to the tune of literally over 100x, sometimes close to 1,000x under the right conditions in an altcoin market that is being stimulated by Bitcoin price discovery. So my prediction for a new Bitcoin all-time high and an alt season that will literally melt faces will be the beginning of 2021. And so people are wondering if I'm buying altcoins right now, and the truth is I absolutely am. I've actually been investing heavily in altcoins right now, but I'm not investing in the coins that have already mooned, the ones that already have hundreds of millions in market cap. No, I'm investing in newer ones that I think even in sort of off-season markets could still do gains. These are fundamentally strong projects that are launching at reasonable market caps and literally have not already mooned, meaning that they don't have all that gravity on them that could potentially come down dramatically over the next few months until Bitcoin makes its move. There are some amazing altcoins in that sort of upper mid-range that I could see bleeding out pretty heavily until this next alt season starts. Now that's not bad if you're willing to hold on, but if you're looking to still make good quick flips and gains, well, my attention is going to be on the new coins, the coins that have not gotten their 2020 pumps yet, the coins that have strong fundamentals and use case. And so that's how I'm viewing the market, is that there's still a ton of short-term opportunities, but it's not going to be on those Coinbase listed monstrous altcoins. Well, they're going to need a little bit more love and liquidity from the market that will most likely come in the form of Bitcoin having new price discovery and a new all-time high, which, if history is any guide, will come at the beginning of next year. But this Bitcoin cycle, this altcoin cycle, this crypto cycle is looking to be more special and more meaningful than ever before. More institutional adoption, more retail adoption, more macro factors validating the underlying reasons why blockchain and Bitcoin were created in the first place. We're looking at a potential political reshuffling of the deck. We're looking at both sides politically motivated to provide stimulus. So regardless of which way this election shakes out, I believe stimulus will be coming to the American people and by extension, the global crypto markets. And so with that in mind, over the next few months, I'm going to be looking at altcoins that could still grow in this off-season market and using those to add to my Bitcoin holdings. And of course, getting ready for the moment where those fundamentally strong altcoins, those really disruptive ones, the Chainlinks, the Ethereums. Of course, there are several other ones which we'll be talking about in the coming days, but those are the ones that are going to take off like crazy once Bitcoin has a new price discovery moment. If you got some value out of this video, go ahead and smash that like button, and remember that each and every comment on this video is entered to win your very own Ledger Nano S. If you guys are interested in learning about the most disruptive and undervalued technologies in the space, I encourage you guys to go ahead and subscribe and make sure you put that bell on, because we're coming with cryptocurrency content each and every day, except of course yesterday, but that's an exception because we're going to start publishing earlier in the day now. So we wanted to move today's video much earlier in the day, and I hope you guys enjoyed this new publishing time. We're going to try to stick to it. As usual, my name's Elio Trades. If you want to connect with me personally, feel free to follow me on Twitter or join my Telegram. The links for both of those are in the description, of course. As usual, I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon on the next episode.